episode of Van Life Unfiltered. Here's where we discuss different ways you can get involved in van life, you can get started if it gets a little bit confusing and overwhelming, which definitely we hear a lot about here at Van Life Academy, Project Van Life. And so if you want to learn more, you can absolutely head to the link in our bio, find some free ebooks, and get started. But today we've decided to talk to another expert, someone who's built over 100 vans and has so much success that we would love to get your your expertise, your opinion, your experience, and be able to share it with people who are starting out here in van life and wanting to live on the road. So I'd love if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Paulos. I'm the founder and CEO of 27North, formerly known as Everest Conversions. And I just started building out vans in my mom's garage about 5 years ago, right before the pandemic. And then it just became a passion of mine. I was not expecting it going in, just I was kind of doing it as a favor for a client of mine, and just seeing the impact it was having on people's lives to experience a real RV, something of a quality build that they can actually go off grid on, not only changed my life, but the course of our company. And I think that's been the key to our success over the years.
Absolutely. So what got you inspired, and what do you live in a van? Have you lived in a van? Do you like off-roading? Do you have experience yourself?
Oh, most definitely. So I started traveling from probably ever since I was born. I immigrated here from Ukraine at a young age. Our family was always big on the outdoors. We would go traveling every weekend, whether it was Mount Hood or going out to the beach. And a lot of times we would camp out in a van, not the typical van life vans that we have today, just a regular van, and toppling down the seats and putting out blankets. And so I think that passion of mine that started from a very young age. And then finally, when I graduated from college, I went into construction. I started building homes. And one of my professors in college told me to create or go into an industry that is new and different from everyone else. And I looked around, it seemed like there's so many people in construction. And I'm like, what can I do that's different? And at that time, I had a client who asked me if I could do some work on his Airstream. And so he brought me his Airstream, and I'm like, sure, I can do it. And I started tearing everything apart, and I'm like, wow, this is really not designed for staying, 3, 4 days, at least 3, 4 days out in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, this is like designed for a camp spot, an RV camp spot. And so I built out the first Airstream for him to be able to be off grid. So I use, quality products, quality installations, quality appliances, all 12 volt. And whenever I saw how big of an impact it had on him, because he would go out into the lake where there's no um, ground power, or shore power, there's no water. And it just seeing how excited him and his wife were to be able to stay out on the lake, I'm like, I need to do more of this. And so I went and bought a Ram ProMaster, and together with my wife, we converted it for a young couple out of Denver, Colorado. And they were just newlyweds. They were both pilots, and they wanted to be able to spend their in between time, so 11 days off grid. And so the challenge went from 3 to 5 days to 11 days. And so designing the next step up, being able to stay 11 days off grid, brought its own unique, obstacles, but we were able to design it for that. And then finally, after that, they told some other friends, and someone else came to us like, well, we want to be off grid 2 months at a time. It's like, wow, okay, that really raised the bar. So we had to get really creative. How do we create a van build conversion that can go off grid for so long? And I think just doing that created, such a cool passion for me. My wife and I travel a lot. We try to do it monthly. We now have an expedition truck called the Ascender. And so I wouldn't say we're full-time van life by any means, but we love going, a week, two at a time off grid. Our most recent trip, we went to Mount Zion. There's a Jeeps only trail there where you can go to the top of a canyon. And so we hung out there, and, just being able to be out in nature away from people is just an amazing experience.
Yeah. What are some of those things when you were tearing apart that first RV that you found that you were like, this is not going to work, this is not good
Oh,
quality? Some of those
I
points.
wish I didn't say the brand. All of it. So it started with just the cabinetry. Traditional cabinetry, it's built to be able to stand on its own. As we started taking apart this cabinetry, it was all like built and installed. Like there's no back wall, there's no base wall. And so it was very brittle. And as we started taking it apart, it just broke apart. And I'm like, wow. And then around the sink, the water damage just completely rotted it away. Then we got to the plumbing and the electrical, and it was just, I mean, for lack of a better phrase, what some people in the industry call it a rat's nest. And so it was very unserviceable. And then when we got to the floors, they were all dry rotted, and it was a horrific experience for this couple who had it, and it was a newer unit, and so yeah, it was a huge disappointment both for us and for our first client.
Yeah. What are some of those things that you learned from doing that you took into that first van that you built that you knew that you changed, or like specifically
Yeah.
like, what did you change and make better, and then how did you make it better?
Yeah, I knew right away you can't use residential products in regards to like floors, wall coverings, ceiling coverings in a van. And so whenever we designed a first van, we right away went to products that you could find on a boat. And so the flooring that we used was a luxury vinyl plank with a marine grade plywood underlayment, so it never dry rots, it never gets mildewed, it doesn't get as damaged. And so with the vinyl plank, it's so cool because it's a waterproof barrier. So even if you spill some water or drop a knife or drop your phone, it's not going to damage the floor. And then
Mhm.
all the way to the ceiling, the wall coverings, the ceiling coverings, we use the finish that could withstand drastic climate changes. And then the fixtures is probably a big and important thing for me. We used all 12 volts appliances. Before I get into the fixture, the appliances were all 12 volts. The refrigerator, the air conditioning, all of it was 12 volts, and so it doesn't take a lot of power. And then on the fixtures, same thing. We use the marine grade fixtures so that example, the cabinet hardware. A lot of times, cabinet doors and drawers open when you travel or rattling. We use ones that are like a button pull, and it like sucks the door in, and so not only does it keep it from vibrating, but it keeps it permanently shut. So if you do take a sharp turn or you hit a pothole, cabinet doors aren't flying open.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've now built over 100 vans, right, with your company 27 North. What is something that, from that very first RV to now, what are some of the big things that you've learned from building so many vans?
Something we've really learned over the years is weight is probably a big one. Um, Traveling with my wife, I think her longest trip was, I want to say, 4 or 5 weeks, and so that's fairly short term in my opinion. And so whenever people travel longer periods of time, they bring naturally more things with them. And so whenever you load up a van, and you have to take into account weight. And so we've cut our conversions by more than 50% on weight. And so having to get very creative, not to trade quality, but to be able to cut weight without trading quality. And so that's involved a lot of research and development. Something we probably take most pride in is our wall and ceiling panels. A lot of people still use wood. We use a really thin aluminum sheeting with a solid composite backing. And so it's super lightweight, like one entire wall panel, the length of a 170 Sprinter, I can spin on one finger. It's super lightweight. But at the same time, if I went to punch it or threw my phone at it, it wouldn't get damaged. Things like battery power. So whenever people are working off grid now, their cameras, their laptops, their different like appliances and stuff that's using a lot more power, even just charging up a drone and a laptop at the same time. And so having to get creative, well, how do we increase battery capacity but without increasing weight? And so each component going through that. Same thing with water. We originally thought 30 gallons is enough because whenever we go out for 3, 5, 6 weeks, the water tanks we are having when we started, we were just using 10-gallon water tanks. Well, that increased to 15, 20, 25, and now 30. And so of the manufacturers, we have one of the largest water tanks in our builds. And yeah, I can go on and on for hours.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to someone who's coming to you and you're trying to figure out something like, how do I know how much water is enough water for me
Yeah.
specifically, when everyone's different, and you have all these different options, and you're having to figure out, where do I want to put that weight, where do I want to kind of sacrifice, and play the games of, I want to put things here, but I don't necessarily need this. And how do
Yeah.
you recommend someone kind of figures out what matters to them in their van build?
The cool thing now is there's so many YouTube videos out there. What we do to help our clientele base is we have spreadsheets. And so, for example, like power, we have an entire spreadsheet for power, and it goes item by item. What are the appliances you're going to use in addition to the ones that come with the van? So, drone, what kind of drone? Cell phone, what kind of cell phones? Like, are you bringing blow dryers, water boilers, espresso machines? Then we help the client pull the schematics of power consumption off the owner's manual. And then we put in, okay, let's say coffee, for example. If you're bringing a coffee machine and this coffee machine's using so many watts per hour, how many times a day are you brewing coffee? How many times a week? And then it auto calculates how much power you need in order to comfortably live that lifestyle that you're anticipating. Similar with water, we help clients. On average, we found men use about 1 gallon of water to shower. Women use about 2.5 gallons of water to shower. And so we ask those uncomfortable questions. How many times a week are you planning to shower? How many weeks at a time are you planning to stay off grid? Dishes, do you use the recyclable dishes where you just rinse them off outside, or are you going to do like full on dishes inside? And we help you walk through all of this to kind of
Mhm.
find out, hey, yes, I have enough in this 27 North build, or I need to bring an auxiliary tank with portable solar panels, or hey, can you help me find out how do I live comfortably but give up some of these amenities? And so we kind of walk you through all of that at the completion of the sale.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I noticed as well that you guys do is you actually build on all three of the usual chassis. You build on Mercedes, Ford, and I've seen you do ProMasters as well. Do you have a favorite? Do you have one that you prefer that you recommend to people, or do you like all three?
I like all three. I think Ford is the most practical per se. It's very utilitarian, cost effective. It's got over 4,000 service centers in the US alone. Ram, I don't recommend because it's only in two-wheel drive and a small engine. It's very good for entry level. So I find a lot of our first timers and college students and entry level individuals, or if you're working with a smaller budget, it's very popular. We don't build on the ProMaster anymore. And then the Mercedes is my personal favorite. And the reason I like Mercedes is the 170 is it's really long. It's one of the longest, tallest, and then it's got the diesel engine, all-wheel drive. And so that's probably why I like it most. The trade-off is they only have about 400 service centers across the U.S. So I'd probably be caught between the Ford Transit and the Mercedes Sprinter. If I had to choose one of the two, I'd go with the Mercedes Sprinter.
Yeah, absolutely. So something we were talking about as well was, how to avoid overbuilding, overweight, and practical builds. Something you had brought up earlier was, a lot of people they see these Pinterest builds and they want to go for, the aesthetics and, having to balance, you want it to of course be a pretty van, but you want it to be functional
Right.
as well. I would love if you could talk about why you're passionate about that and like your experiences with that as well.
Yeah, so a lot of experience. The first build my wife designed, and it was copy paste off Pinterest. White cabinets, natural butcher block countertops, glass shower door, right there at GVWR, maxed out weight. And so we learned from that hey, you can't have everything you want, but it's not that you can't have it, but at the end of the day, it's like, do you really need it? The
Mhm.
whole aspect or point of van life and off-grid living is what I call minimalism. And so with minimalism, you don't need, excessive high power using blow dryers and espresso machines. I mean, we offer that for, in our Ascender expedition truck build and some of our higher class van builds, but that's for leisure use. That's not for van life. If you're really passionate about van life, I recommend starting with researching the lifestyle. And so, how I was able to overcome it, I connected with uh, influencers like Jared Tucci and a couple other guys and gals, and that were living full time. And I'm like, hey, can you guys firsthand teach me more about van life and minimalism? I want to learn from you guys. I don't want some YouTube video. And so, putting myself in the shoes of a true van life off grid user, I realized, wow, they don't need a lot. Like, it's very basic. That's why it's called minimalism. It's minimum lifestyle living. And so that really helped me then go and redesign. And so whenever we came to our newer designs, our most recent designs, it's made from a standpoint of a true van life or a true off-road, off-grid lifestyle thrill seeker. And so that really helped us in our designs.
Yeah. How do you think someone could balance that desire for a home feeling as well as having that functionality?
I think it boils down to honestly, like, what do you truly want? Do you want the idea of it? If you want the idea of a van life experience, you're going for 2 to 3 days, just go get a cabin or outdoorsy rent a unit that's already parked, set up with camp chairs and everything. Now, if you're really wanting to push the limits and go off grid, you really have to make sacrifices. I don't think there's a compromise in that. I think the only compromise is going with an elite builder like ourselves, to where we're able to cut down all this but use high quality marine grade products. And so we don't trade off quality for lightweight. What they do in the RV industry is they give you essentially cardboard box, cardboard style cabinets, cardboard style walls, ceilings, floors. So they trade
Mhm.
off weight for quality, and we don't do that. We don't compromise on that. We go and we find those key components that are higher quality but still lightweight.
I think a big part of someone living in a van as well is, having that comfortability factor and being comfortable. And, it's of course minimalism, but it's, where
Yeah.
is that line for each person? Because it's going to differ per person.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the things? Because I think if you have it comfortable as well, it makes you want to live in it longer. It
Yeah.
keeps you
Yeah.
comfortable and it keeps your energy up. What are some of those things that you think, keep it having, being functional, but might maybe give it a home feel, or things that you think people can't really cut back on?
Yeah, I think the things that you can't cut back, compromise, negotiate with is the foundations. So the backbone, that's your electrical system, that's your plumbing system, and that's your finishes. Finishes include wall panels, floor, ceiling panel, insulation, and your appliances and your fixtures. That you can't compromise on. You got to use marine grade, high quality, overland style. Like, there's no compromise. It's either you do it or you don't. Like, there's no really in between, if that makes sense. You
Yes.
either do RV style or high quality style. And then doing like a lot of DIYs, unfortunately, they'll use like residential products. Those are really heavy and bulky. And so while it might work short term or in the interim, I'm not judging people that do that. My first build was very similar to that. I highly recommend just using marine grade quality products. In regards to how to make it homey, that's where the accessories come in. Go all out on the accessories. A lot of people don't realize, like, you could put pictures up. You can put can't probably shouldn't say candles. You can put like different little accessories and cups and plates and things on the walls, and an awesome quilt on the bed, and the seat covering. So a lot of seats come stock. So pull something over the seats, and you can go out, because even if you cover your entire van, it's gonna be less than 100 pounds. It's not that big of a deal, but you'll get such a home vibe that it'll make it an awesome experience. Use a high quality mattress, use high quality pillows. Your appliances, don't just go get something off the shelf, but get something with meaning. Get something with a painting on it, a picture on it, to make your van feel very, very homey.
What do you think are some of those elements that people can skip over or not use that are adding that extra weight?
I think a lot of the extra stuff that people bring that they don't ever really use, that they can skip out on. I'd probably even start with like traditional lawn chairs. Those take up so much space. There's really cool foldable overland style chairs, or you're in nature, go sit on a tree stump, go sit on the ground, like put a quilt on the floor. There's grounding effect, like be outdoorsy. I think some other things, off the top of my head, would be appliances. A lot of times people want to bring these bulky coffee machines and the big residential style pressure cookers and stuff like that. Try to think minimalism. Try to think apartment style, condo style, boat style. I always recommend, if you want to really really push the limits, there's influencers online that live in yachts and boats, and they have it right, because when they're in the middle of the sea, there's no campsite, Dollar General, or a little supermart. So they really, really hone it down. And so I think if you really want to go and experience that true off-grid lifestyle, to go watch some videos of people living in yachts.
I think I was also noticing as well, something that you were saying was that it's very different for people who are part time versus full time, and how you can have a lot more luxuries when you're part time. It seems like you were
Yeah.
saying.
Yes, so if you're doing like just for the weekend, our vans are perfect for that. It's got like microwave, it's got a cooktop, it's got full size shower, bed, bath. It's long. It's got a lot of amenities. And honestly, we designed them to be able to go off grid 2 3 months at a time. You just got to be a lot more mindful for it.
Mm.
I think the trade off is if you're trying, you just got to find out like what your goal is, and you got to make a real, like if you're doing a weekend part-time traveling or full-time. I think it's two complete different lifestyles that involve a different level of disciplines.
Gotcha. Absolutely. So, in your vans, when you're building out vans, what is something that you are choosing, functionality over aesthetics with?
Functionality over aesthetics, I would probably say start with the floors. Um, I personally feel like if I'm on a boat or on a van or um, traveling, I love wood products, and so in my home I have hardwood wood floors, and so that's a big trade off for me, and I feel like a lot of people they want that homey aesthetic look. That's why early on our vinyl plank was so popular because it looked like wood. Right now, we use an industrial floor covering that's very overland ruggedy style because it's the most practical. It's very utilitarian, so you can come in your boots if you have pets, if you have leaks. It's very, very resilient to wear and tear. Another thing would probably be, I would say, our finishing touches. Like we have very limited amount of things we can work with. I feel like if I was, designing an apartment or a condo or doing my own, I'd want pictures on the walls. I'd want like little things, but at the end of the day, those are all things that can fall or get damaged, and so we have to make it very minimalistic.
Absolutely. I would love if, as we close up, if you could talk more about, what you are doing, what projects you're working on, where people could find you online if they want to search you up.
Yeah, so you can find us at the27north.com. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, any and all platforms out there. The 27 North. 27 is the number, and the North spelt out. You can find we do how-to videos. We do a lot of interviews and lifestyle content. So if you need some inspiration or just someone to talk on the phone and just talk through, a lot of times people come in and they'll have like a Pinterest picture of what they want, or they'll have this YouTube video they saw of some DIY guy who does a sliding toilet with folding out solar panels and this marvelous idea. And I always encourage and recommend people don't start with what you saw, start with what you need. And so start with the lifestyle you're planning to live. If you're just going out for the weekend, you don't need all those, things you saw on Pinterest and social media. It's not necessary. And the trade or the caveat to that is the question arises: is it DOT certified? Is it RVIA certified? Does it void the Mercedes or Ford warranty? A lot of these questions people don't ask. And so just be very cautious if you are doing a DIY build, or if you're buying a DIY build. I would caution against it because many times it doesn't have all those certifications. It's not engineered. And so what happens when you hit a speed bump and you risk, Google the forums, they're endless, and cabinets start falling, and you have pets or something valuable in the back. It's a lot of things that people don't take into account, the safety aspect of it. And so I always encourage and recommend just to buy a professionally built one. It also helps with resale value. It's NADA certified. Insurance is a lot easier to get. There's just so many benefits of getting a professional build over a DIY build. And at the end of the day, if you do a DIY build, it's an amazing experience and journey. Just keep in mind all these things we've talked about and do it right. Don't cut any corners and don't be screwing 2x4s into the wall of your beautiful van.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you and sharing your advice and your experience. And I think this is going to be very helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah, you're very much welcome. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you again to everyone who watched this either on Spotify as the podcast or on our YouTube channel or on Instagram Live. And we'll see you again next week. And if you want to find those free ebooks, again, they are linked